program that delves into the latest and most significant economic stories. From stock markets to currency news, Business Review covers the most up-to-date stories in the global financial world.
The U.S. President Donald Trump said the White House current coronavirus guidelines will be fading out as more states begin to reopen their economies. Vice President Mike Pence said the guidelines are being incorporated by governors into their plans to reopen and indicate they will phase out over time. Trump announced guidelines on April the 16th that recommend a three-phase approach for states and counties to reopen their economies by May the 1st. As the guidelines are to expire, some states chose to extend the stay-at-home order. Arizona's stay-at-home order will continue through to the 15th of May, but it also announced an easing of restrictions on economic activities. Doug Ducey, the state governor, hoped that the public could follow the rules and those who disobey the rules would be punished.
Ireland announced the first small steps to easing restrictions to slow the spread of the coronavirus and laid out a roadmap for a gradual reopening of the economy from May 18th if the virus can be kept under control. Ireland instructed people to stay inside almost 6 weeks ago, only allowing those under 70 to leave their homes where their work is deemed essential, to shop for groceries or for brief exercise. The severe restrictions shut down all but essential operations. Acting Prime Minister Leo Varadkar retained those measures but told people over 70s that they could leave their homes to go for a walk or a drive from May 5th and extended the travel limit to exercise to 5 kilometers from 2 kilometers. A return to something approaching economic normality will commence on May 18th. With a plan to reopen the economy in 5 3-week stages, with the final stage concluding in August. If the virus worsens, the economy may go back a phase, Varadkar said in a televised address, as Ireland joined other European countries in mapping a way out of the crisis.
U.S. President Donald Trump said the United States plans to accelerate the development of a coronavirus vaccine, an effort that has been dubbed Operation Warp Speed. Trump, speaking to reporters in the Oval Office, said he is in overall charge of the project aimed at finding a vaccine for the virus as quickly as possible. Government agencies and the military will team up with the private sector with the goal of having 100 million doses of the coronavirus vaccine ready by the end of 2020. Executive and other experts have previously suggested that clinical trials to guarantee a vaccine is safe and effective could take longer, a minimum of 12 to 18 months. The Biomedical Advanced Research and Development Authority, or BARDA, recently announced nearly $1 billion in support of vaccine manufacturing efforts by Moderna and Johnson & Johnson. As the country races to find a vaccine for a potentially deadly virus, it's also working towards treatments, with early data showing that Gilead Sciences' incorporated experimental antiviral drug remdesivir helped patients recover more quickly from the illness caused by the coronavirus. The Chinese Premier Li Keqiang spoke over the phone with European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen, with both sides expressing commitment to beefing up cooperation to fight against the COVID-19 pandemic. Li said that the face of the global spread of the pandemic, China and the European Union have been supporting and helping each other. Li said under current circumstances, China is ready to join hands with the EU to carry forward the spirit of solidarity and boost exchanges and cooperation on the prevention and control of the pandemic, as well as on economic recovery. Li added China hopes the EU will continue to provide security guarantees for Chinese nationals in Europe. He pointed out the virus knows no borders and both China and the EU advocate multilateralism. Lee said EU has responded positively to the initiatives of the United Nations and the WHO to carry out international cooperation in combating the pandemic. China is ready to work with the EU, actively participating in research, development and production of vaccines, drugs and diagnostic reagents, and provide support to those places where the public health system is weak. The Chinese premier expects the international community to make joint efforts and overcome the pandemic at an early date. Von der Leyen, for her part, said the COVID-19 outbreak, the EU and China have maintained close coordination. She said the response to the global pandemic requires solidarity and coordination of all countries in the world. She added that the EU stands ready to reinforce cooperation with China to jointly fight the pandemic.
A Paris bakery losing 40% of its trade during the coronavirus lockdown is staying alive thanks to their French customers' love for baguettes and weakness for pastries. Pam Pam Bakery, known for its award-winning baguette, has stayed open during the confinement period that began on March 17th, but it has lost most of its clientele of tourists and shopkeepers in the usually bustling Montmartre neighborhood. But the shop owner is not expecting to see the tourists again until next year. His bakery went from selling 150 sandwiches a day to about 20 as the lunchtime crowd disappeared. Sales of croissants and pains au chocolat that are popular with tourists and students are down by half. Baguette sales are also down by a third, but enough customers come back for the iconic French staple. He started selling packets of flour and yeast to people baking at home. He's also selling more sourdough and nut breads and farmhouse loaves that keep longer. He even has sold pizza for the first time. The owner put 4 of his staff of 20 on partial employment and has taken a government loan to meet expenses. Unlike other businesses who lost 100% of revenue, he did not qualify for government aid nor rent deferrals. His planned investments, such as a new paint job and a new machine for pastries, are on hold. He brought masks for his staff and built some plastic and glass barriers around the counters to prevent customers from leaning in.
Thousands of people queued for food parcels amid lockdown in the South African city of Centurion. Drone footage showed thousands standing in a queue that stretched for 4 kilometers. Various private businesses donated 8,000 food hampers, which were distributed in the informal settlement of Mupilas. South Africa has spent 5 weeks under coronavirus restrictions, requiring most of the population to stay at home, apart from essential trips, leaving many businesses and individuals struggling without income in the recession-hit economy. The country plans to reopen its agricultural sector and allow some manufacturing and retail to resume as it seeks to balance the need to restart economic output and curb the spread of the COVID-19 or the coronavirus.
German unemployment soared in April, while monthly retail sales declined last month at their fastest rate in 13 years, as the coronavirus lockdown hit Europe's biggest economy hard. Germany is braced for its deepest recession since World War II, the economy minister has warned, as the shutdown has shuttered many shops, businesses and factories. Although a gradual easing of restrictions has started, Labour Office data showed the number of people out of work in Germany saw a record increase in April, rising by 373,000 to 2.639 million. That took the unemployment rate to 5.8% from a seasonally adjusted 5% a month earlier. The head of the Labour Office, Ditlev Scheele, said he expected to use reserves of about 26 billion euros this year for the scheme, adding that because the scheme was working, redundancies would not be widespread. Some 751,000 requests for short-time work for a total of 10.1 million people were made in March and until April 26th, though Not all of those will end up on the short-time work scheme. German Labour Minister Hubertus Heil said unemployment in Germany would be much worse without the government's short-time work scheme that is securing millions of jobs. Heil, who said he would fight for every job, added that it was unclear how long the scheme's reserves would last and it might be necessary to organize liquidity aid for the scheme. Short-time work is a form of state aid that allows employers to switch employees to shorter working hours during an economic downturn to keep them on the payroll.
This has been Business Review, your daily source for the most critical stories in the financial world. Tune in next time for the latest financial news impacting the world economy.